Okay? All right, so the cell theory. First, we're going to review a little bit what we just read and what we talked about before. Okay? What does unicellular and multicellular mean? Don't write anything yet. We're just going to talk about it. I'll tell you right in just a minute. What does unicellular mean? Think about that prefix uni and multi. Parker?
So, for unicellular, uni means one, and so unicellular is an organism that is made out of one type of cell, and it can either be eukaryotic.
Very good. An organism made out of one type of cell could be eukaryotic or prokaryotic. Bonus question. What is the only kingdom that contains a unicellular, eukaryotic organism? Davin?
Protista?
Protista. Very good. Okay. Well, our examples were amoeba, euglena, paramecium.
Wait, hold on.
Well, hold on. Don't yell out at me. What?
That's phylum.
No, that's kingdom. Domain, kingdom, phylum.
Phylum is like sponge.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Okay.
First thing you came up with.
Everything's a sponge.
Guys. What does multicellular mean then? Think about that prefix multi. Trinity? Very good. A many-celled organism. So, here's what you're going to write in the notes. Hopefully they can see that okay. All right? If an organism is unicellular, all functions of life happen within that one cell. Okay? So, we just talked about how if an organism is made of one cell, then that one cell performs every single job. Yikes, they can't see anything. Okay? That one cell will get all the food that it needs. It will metabolize the food to create energy. It will do everything it needs to get that cell living. It will move if it needs to. It will defeat outside infection, things like that. But if an organism is multicellular, the different cells have different jobs and they all work together. Okay? We just talked about how if you burn your hand on a hot stove, right? Your nerve cells jump into action. They say, ow, that hurts. Then your muscle cells jump into action and move your hand away from the stove. Then your blood cells jump into action and send white blood cells, red blood cells to the area to help it heal. Your skin cells jump into action and begin to produce replacements for the cells that you burned off. Okay? Each of your cells, and there's many more obviously, but each of those cells perform different jobs. And each of them are necessary to keep the multicellular organism alive. That's also why a multicellular organism is typically much more complex than a unicellular one. Okay? A one-celled bacteria cannot do as many things as a multi-celled human. Okay? Or an animal or a plant. Ethan.
I might have two things. If I forget the second one, then that's just me. But
okay.
Number one, for the introduction of shells, I felt like the music was kind of like the music was more intriguing than the actual video was.
Yeah, yes, the music is very epic. Yes. Okay, what's the real question?
And then so if an organism is unicellular, it works. Does that mean it's blood it's probably the same with multicellular, but I assume it is. But unicellular does all does the white do the red blood cells move at the same time that would the brain cells move?
In a multicellular organism?
In the unicellular.
Well, the unicellular does not have the different types of cells.
Oh yeah.
It's just that one cell. Mm-hmm.
So and then that one cell would be doing the ow.
That one cell would do everything it needs to. So there are no nerve cells, there are no muscle cells, but if there were a problem in the cell, it would take care of it. Okay. Within that one cell, yes.
So,
Nico? Yes. Did you forget? Okay. Sophie.
I have a comment type question.
Okay.
How many cells do you think could fit in that person's eye?
And their eye?
Because it's like so small.
Oh, in the picture of the eye?
They
you
don't
mean?
even have an eye.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, it's very tiny.
Okay, we're moving on.
Okay.
All right. Nope. Okay, so now we're gonna do a little quiz. Okay, not really, but sort of. I'm gonna put a picture on the board. You're gonna tell me is it unicellular or multicellular. Okay, so we're gonna use some sign language. This is sign language for you. If you think it's unicellular, you're gonna hold this up. Okay. This. Okay, so if you hold your hand up, I'm gonna show you how to do M. If you hold your hand up, you put your thumb in between your third finger and your pinky, and then curl your fingers down. Okay? This is M. You're going to show me an M for multicellular. Okay? So either unicellular or multicellular. That means I should not hear anything. I should only see either a U or an M. Okay? Shh. I'm about to give you a warning if you can't knock it off. Alrighty, this one. Unicellular or multicellular? Good. Unicellular. Okay? You can see the outline of the cell. You can see the little organelles in there. That's actually an amoeba.
That's an amoeba.
Uh-huh. Okay? What about this one? Now, I'll give you a hint. In this picture, there are more than one organism. So there is more than one living thing in this picture.
Oh.
Okay, it is unicellular.
Oh.
Here's what I mean by that.
Okay, this is one.
This is a living thing. That is a living thing. That's a living thing. That's a living thing. That's a living thing. That's a living thing. Each one of those living things is made of one cell. Okay? So it's unicellular. This is multiple euglena. Alright? They do have a red spot. It's called like the eye spot. It's not actually an eye, but they do have like a red spot. I think it's the nucleus, but I'm not 100% sure. Okay? So that one is unicellular as well. What about this one?
Oh, so cute.
So precious.
It's a boost baggie.
Good. That is multicellular. This one. Good. That's a picture of one cell. It's unicellular. Okay? I believe this is the paramecium because it has the cilia, the little hairs on the outside of it. Okay? What about this one?
Definitely.
Good. Also unicellular. Okay? Lots of little individual cells in there, each of which is a unicellular organism. This one, the elephant. Elefante. Good. Multicellular. This one, the coral. It's a plant. It is multicellular. Very good. And lastly, the tree. Multicellular. Good. Okay? So here's kind of the trick. Okay? If the organism is able to be seen without a microscope, typically it will be multicellular. Okay? If it is something very, very tiny, like bacteria, and you usually need a microscope to see it, or at least see it well, typically it will be unicellular. Okay? All right. I can't stop now. Hold on. All right. So, who came up with this idea of cells? Okay? Now, we just read that Robert Hooke was the first person to coin the term cell. Okay? What that means is he was the first person to use the word cell to describe these little living things. Okay? Now, he didn't really know what he was looking at, but what happened was he was observing a piece of cork under a microscope, which cork is a piece of a plant, Okay, it's like a shaving of a plant tissue, basically. He was looking at that under a microscope, and what he saw looked something like this. Okay? And when he saw it, he thought, this looks kind of like the little cells that monks stay in a monastery. So he called them cells. Now, he did not know at the time that what their real structure was, or what their function was. What Hooke had thought were cells or little rooms were actually empty cell walls of plant tissues. Okay? But he was the first person to use that term cell to describe these small little parts of something. So, he started it. Then, later on, came another scientist named Anton von Leeuwenhoek. Okay? Really long, kind of complicated name. But here's what he did. Soon after Robert Hooke used the term cell, Anton von Leeuwenhoek observed tiny living microorganisms in pond water in the 1660s. So what he did is he took a little bit of pond water, okay, put it under a microscope and said, whoa, hold on. What I thought was just a drop of water actually, under the microscope, contains all these tiny little things that are moving around and swimming in there. And he wrote to the Royal Society on October 9th, 1676, and declared that because these little things were moving around on their own, that meant they must be living. So Leeuwenhoek said, these tiny organisms that are moving around in pond water on their own must be living. Okay? So Robert Hooke used the term cell, and then Anton von Leeuwenhoek discovered, hold on, these little moving and living things in water, it's like there's cells in water. But when you just look at water, it looks like it's just clear. So what is this stuff? Okay? And tomorrow, we'll talk about two more scientists that also contributed to this theory. Okay? And then all together, these guys created what we now know as the cell theory. Okay? All right. Parker, question.
It's not